Well, the review may benefit not just this panel if it is established, but it might actually enhance the operational dimension to those other panels that are already in existence.
So this is the way through here. As I say, let's, on the basis of my undertaking here, we will present as much as we possibly can about the effectiveness, etc., et al. That you've asked for during the discussions around 7th and 8th. And at that point in time, if you feel there's more that you would like to see, you're not comfortable with the report thus far, then you can move it, and that would impact on whether or not you would be prepared to grant the money.
Exactly.
But what I would encourage is the opportunity for us to consider this as a budgetary issue. So let's move it to a budgetary issue discussion. If we can't find the budget, we can't do the panel. So
it's not what the recommendations are really.
Well, yes, it is. Agree that the inclusion will be referred to it. That basically what we're saying, that's the budget that we would need to agree on the 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got two decisions to make here. One, today, whether or not you want to establish it. And secondly, in the end, the most important decision is whether you'll fund it.
Well, shouldn't A be subject then to B?
It is.
Well, it is in the end. But there's two separate debates. We're giving you the opportunity to think about it, and also not only that, but to get more information which you've asked for, which I will endeavour to ensure you get.
Your Worship.
Marguerite, can you help? Please, there's got to be a wise way through this discussion.
So from a practical perspective, giving you a report for the 7th or 8th of May is, I mean, it's not practical to, we don't have the time physically to write a report that reviews the panel. If I look back, so about 18 months ago, we did a comprehensive review of the panels, and that's what led to the establishment of the new panels that we've got now. So basically, we've been going on with those new panels for about a year now. If you'd like a review mid-term, we can do that. But
are you aware of the unhappiness that exists within some of those panels?
I work very closely with them, Councillor. And we are trying our best to work with them in a way that works for everybody. And it's finding a balance between the advisory nature of the panel and the ability for Auckland Council to act on their recommendations. We are actually spending the whole day with the Ethnic Peoples panel this Saturday to work through some of the issues. So we're working very closely with them.
It's not the only one.
No, I know that. So, look, at the very least, we could, on the basis it proceeds, we would at the very least give as comprehensive an update through the 7th and 8th as we possibly can, Chris. And as I say, it's not one common thread. Some would regard themselves as being very effective and doing a very good job. And there are one or two that we're struggling with at the moment, but that's okay. It's never been perfect, and we certainly struggled with one or two of them in the first term. Okay, I've got Councillor Cull, then Councillor Denise, and then Councillor Linda.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And this is probably not one that's going to be easy for a number of our council colleagues around the table. And I'm still sitting where I was at the Community Development and Safety Committee, where I led off on my approach to this. And my approach to this is that when I stand for public office, I would like to think that I actually stand for all people in my community of whatever nature and ethnicity, whatever, across our region as a whole. And if I didn't, then I'd be failing in my people that I represent. But Mr. Chair, I came to you a wee while ago when we talked about restructuring committees, because I said at the time we're top heavy, and I wondered what value we were getting out of those committees. And one thing I hate going to is a committee that is just a talk fest and ask what we deliver out of them. And I'm still waiting to see that committee structure coming forward. And I asked myself the effectiveness of some of those committees. Because for me to sit around this table, and as we know, we talk about it, well, we spoke about this recently, where it's $20,000 an hour, I think it's been quoted for this committee. So to me, it's about giving value back to the ratepayers of Auckland. And I go back to the committees, whether it's the committee structure that we have for us as elected, or whether it's the advisory panels. To me, I stand to be elected to represent all my community and the region as a whole. And I find this really difficult today because I fully respect those that come before us at the Community Safety and Development Committee. They're amazing people to come forward and speak out. And to raise their concerns and issues. But it's not about that. To me, it's about the purse strings of Auckland. You know, I get hammered one side and I get hammered on the other side, and we've got to get a middle balance somewhere. So, Mr. Mayor, I have to say what I said at the Community Safety. I can't support these recommendations today.
Okay, Councillor Denise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support either A or B for the following reasons. One is that in the same vein that Councillor Brewer has raised, the timing of this seems strange to me. It's mid-term. The panel would have to be disbanded next year. This is something that, in fact, the inclusion of any panel at all should have a election cycle obvious element to it. Starting something mid-term at $15,000 for recruitment, just recruitment, to then have to disband them next year, I really struggle in terms of fiscal and strategic responsibility in that regard. I note that it's new money that we have to find, and we're about to very possibly ask the public next week to find extra personal costs, and for some people significant extra personal costs in relation to their rates and a targeted transport levy, and we would have to bring this into the mix. As of today, new money, and I note that that new money doesn't include staff time, and as someone who is the liaison councillor for the Ethnic Peoples Panel, I see what staff time needs to be utilised for these panels. After hours, lots of reports, lots of talking. The ethnic panel is ready for action. They're a fantastic group of people. Someone's right to point out that this weekend they've got a whole Saturday set aside, but within that also is an admission that they need to sort of start from scratch again for why they're here. There's been 2 resignations, and there is a wider discussion about panels. We have been having that, so I do thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership in the last few weeks as a result of what's taken place specifically, I think, on the ethnic panel, but others have spoken up too. So I really do recommend that the timing of this is just unwise from a number of different angles, and suggest that instead of a harsh vote today, we look at the new term tackling this one.
Very good. Linda, Councillor Linda.
Thank you. I guess as a mother of a teenager who's been quite troubled last year, not these issues, but teenagers have some really struggly issues with a whole lot of things in their life. As a former nurse who's worked with young people, I don't want to see this as a nickel and diming this issue. It worries me very greatly that we have people struggling with who they are in this regard, and that we're putting a dollar cost on that side of it. I also understand the concerns about the panels, because part of me thinks, oh my God, so many panels, so many staff, so much money, but I also see it as a mechanism for people having their say from our public right across the term, rather than just at the consultative procedures that we have. We have met with you, Mr. Mayor, the chairs of, just in the last month, chairs of the panels, and I think we are addressing the concerns of the current panels, mostly around feedback loops. So knowing that when they say stuff to us, they want to know what happens with it, they want to be told that, and that's when some of the frustration's been, and I think that's being addressed. On the other hand, I see, we just keep adding and adding and adding, and at least in this term, we added some at the beginning so they could get a good start, we'll have the 3 years, and away you go. But we've still got problems with the panels we just haven't got it right yet. So I am concerned about starting a panel now. I don't want to see black and white no or yes today. I think that's really disrespectful of this community. If we do that, highly disrespectful. It actually basically says, no, we don't want to hear you, and I don't think that that's right at all. But I also think that this amendment is saying, oh, leave it to someone else, isn't a good thing either. Whoa.
Ooh. See, what you just said was wrong.
I was validated. No, validated. That was a big yes. That was like, so Mr. Mayor, oh, hang on. I'm not even a Catholic. Hang on. That in some ways, maybe there is a middle ground that we say, okay, let's commit to this starting in the next term. Actually commit to the next council to do it rather than saying just leave it to the gods, so to speak. Because I think that I'm really concerned that we put this to the vote and it won't get through at all. And I think we've got to have a compromise. But I've got concerns on both sides of the argument. I do want this to go ahead, but I don't want it to be voted down. So I'd be happy if we could just say, look, let's do this. Let's work towards setting it up so that the people that are selected, and I bet there'll be a fantastic lineup of people that we can choose from, will have a good 3-year run. I think it's not the greatest thing to say, yeah, let's get going. Oh, now we're just going to stop again. Just that getting into their stride and we get rid of them, unless you make a commitment to keep those people. So I don't think I could support to just leave it to someone else to work it out. I think I'd like to commit. I voted for it at the committee, but I don't want to see it voted down because I think we've got two polarised views here. So
Councillors, as a way of actually driving it forward, I just had a chat with Phil, and obviously this is work that, generally speaking, is driven by the Mayor, and part of the desire for or the concern for others is that, look, we're partway through it, leave it up to the next council and the leadership of whoever the Mayor is. And, so on the basis that I would take responsibility, and clearly if it did succeed today, it'll be going through a budgetary consideration. I don't make through my Mayor's budget much in the way of commitments. But to actually achieve progress, if some of you have got a concern around budget, I would actually look to instruct my staff out of our budget to support this committee in its operation for the next 18 months. Now, I do that for none other, but I think it's that significant, and I do not want to have people feeling compromised around this. I have a budget, and I very rarely use it on anything except for staff employment to support me. So rather than make it a long-winded debate on the 7th and 8th, I would therefore be prepared to agree that the Rainbow Advisory Panel be established and that it be supported over the next 18 months by the Mayor's office budget.
Cool.
Councillors, that if you've got a financial issue about it, it deals with that issue. But there've been one or two of you sort of are grasping for a way forward here. You don't want to lose it. You don't want to vote against it. But you've got issues around either budgetary or timing. Well, I've tried to explain to you half of the problem in the timing is mine. And half it is with the sector, with the Rainbow community. They have taken a long time to bring this together. And I'm sure you understand why that would be. So make it a discussion around whether you establish it. The funding, the Mayor's office will look after. I can think of no other way through this because I can just see we're going to go from this debate potentially to another one that could be even worse around the budget. It's not a big budget. It's something that our office, I'm sure, through appropriate savings and et al. Can achieve. Councillors, look, I put that up as a way of going forward without another, sort of, I've got a list of various other people who want to speak. I'm very happy just to have on the basis that's what I put up here, and it's sitting there as a recommendation. If people want to just debate the issue of whether we should or should not have, to round it off on the basis that there's no budget issue here to be concerned about.
Just a query on what you've proposed.
Yes, Councillor Chris?
Will you entertain then a C, which would meet the objectives of the concerns that some of us have had about the ongoing review, about the effectiveness of these, so that they're not just set up for, token panels, they are actually set up with the intention of...
That is.
So can we have a C up there to that
That
effect?
is, Councillor Chris, to be fair, if you were sitting in this chair, you will note that that's probably outside of the point. The broader issue of a report on all the panels I've offered purely as a way of moving this forward. What I, rather than set it, because this is specifically about the Rainbow Advisory Panel, not panels per se, I would be happy to undertake to you that we would bring through, not quite sure which committee, probably George's, a full and proper report over the next month, or as quickly as we can get it together, on the panels generally and, value for money, et al., things like that.
Mr Mayor, we are scheduled to do a report on the panel's work programs to the July Regional Strategy and Planning.
Okay, well then that will provide you with the opportunity.
That's effectively a year after they were set up.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor, just a point of clarification. I hear what you're saying as far as no budgetary impact, but I suppose it doesn't address the issues that I've raised around process and timing. And so I invite you, because at the end of the day, it's 71,000 not coming out of one jam jar, but coming out of another ratepayer-funded jam jar. And my argument is that wise 12 months out from it being disestablished? And so I invite you again, Mr Mayor, to consider my amendment as a foreshadowed amendment, that is, if yours is to fail, mine's the backup one.
Councillor, really all I'm saying to you there is that will not be a decision for this council to make. It'll be a decision for the mayor in the new council, and you cannot bind the mayor of the new council, whoever that is.
We're binding the 36-37 council today, so...
Yeah, and as soon as that new council is elected, they have the right to actually address all of those issues.
Exactly.
There's been plenty of amendments about deferrals.
So, are we still to speak in order? Or?
Well, Councillor Alf, so remember I've said, okay, look, if we can just take the budgetary issue off the table and address the issue, if someone actually wants to speak to the pros and the cons of whether you should establish. So I've got Councillor Alf, and then Councillor George will want to speak to that.
Councillor Wood was before me.
Oh, was it? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
he
Councillor
was.
George.
Well, okay. I don't support this at this time because I'm not aware of what's going on at the ethnic panel at this stage. In the first term of this council, statutorily, there was a requirement for a Pacific Peoples panel and an ethnic panel. They were the two that were listed that had to be established. I think we had a rural committee and an economic panel, but now we've ended up with 7 panels. And with the ethnic panel, I was very surprised at the end of the start of this term, when we appointed the new panel. I think everyone in the panel was a new member. It was complete turnover in the complement of that ethnic panel. So now we've ended up with a situation where there's been a spillover, which became public, and there was the chairman. I think he's finished now. And gone.
Okay, stop. Stop, please. Right, now, we're actually talking about the Rainbow Advisory Panel. Just hang on.
Yeah, okay.
Right, now, I gave Councillor Chris a little bit of latitude because she was sort of on point, but we are dealing here solely, and I think, we've had a little bit of broader reflection on the issue of whether you set up a Rainbow Advisory Panel. Now, if we spend all the time just reflecting on your view on other panels, then in the end you're not addressing what we are discussing here. That is, do you support or not the establishment of a rainbow panel? Not what you think about the Ethnic People's Advisory Panel or any of that. It's the question is, and that's why I've asked you, and so I'm not going to allow any more latitude, otherwise we'll be here till the cows come home. So I've asked you, Councillor George, will you speak on whether you support the establishment of the Rainbow Advisory Panel?
Well, I was trying to actually indicate why I wasn't supporting the establishment of the Rainbow Panel at this time, and I was trying to put that into context and give the reasons as to why that is the situation. And I think, I've established that then we need to do more work in relation to these panels. So why would we be establishing another panel when we've got reviews going on in relation to the existing panels? So
Councillor George, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because I'm actually wanting to focus this discussion. We've had enough discussion about the broader issue. I want to know from you whether or not you want to support the establishment of Rainbow.
I'll carry on to that. In relation to the cost factor, 56,500 costs for meeting fees, catering, mileage, parking, 2 summits, and that doesn't include the democracy services requirements. Democracy services would require additional resources to support the new panel. Experience has shown that supporting the democratic panels or the demographic panels is resource intensive for democracy advisors and lead officers. Now, I don't know why that is, and we haven't been told. No doubt the review will give us some more information there, but this is becoming an issue where we're talking about trying to reduce budgets and trying to do lots of other things, and we're telling our local boards and other people that we just don't have the resources, the budgets to support their programs, cut them back, and here we go. We're starting on another budget or another budget requirement.
Councillor George,
here.
look,
So,
I'm